Hi everyone, my name is James. I'm a biomechanist and coach at the Shenzhen University Center in China. And welcome to my new video talking about the blocks execution and settings for sprinters. Now, in this video, we have one of the athletes part of the Chinese national team show you how. He is mainly a long jumper, but he also is a very good sprinter. He has a PB of 6.52 in 60 meters, which he ran in Nanjing in 2024. So before we start to discuss about the biomechanics of the block settings and the set settings for the sprinters, let's discuss what is the main goal for the sprinters. So the main goal for sprinters, especially during the blocks execution, is to perform a correct execution to maximize what is, in this case, the horizontal velocity. So the main goal for sprinters is to maximize the horizontal velocity and escape the blocks, and to minimize what is, in this case, I'm going to use color yellow, the vertical velocity up here. So we want to have our body moving forward, and we can do that and we can maximize that if we are achieving correct angles and positions during especially this moment here. So during the set positioning over here right now. So during this video, we're only going to discuss about the positioning during the set. We're going to discuss about the front angle, we're going to discuss about the rear angle, we're going to discuss of the hip flexors, we're going to discuss about the shoulders position, the feet position, we're going to discuss about all these things. We're going to try to make it as quick as possible, as simple to understand as possible, and let's go on. So let's talk about one thing per time. Let's talk about the hip flexors. So we have here the hip flexors. The hip flexors are the muscles that are required to flex the knee towards the air. So in this case, the right leg is performing a powerful hip concentric flexion of the right leg from behind the center of mass to the front of the center of mass. To do this, for this movement to be as powerful as possible, the hip flexor muscles need to be in a good position, in a correct position, which allows the maximum amount of actin and myosin filaments to be connected to maximize what is the power stroke of this flexion. So this is why this is one of the most critical important things that we need to look at when we are setting the blocks for athletes. The second movement, of course, instead is the opposite leg. So the left leg, it's performing, especially starting from here, when the right leg is leaving the blocks, it's performing a powerful hip extension. So in this case, the main muscles that are working are going to be the back chain muscles. So in this case, the glutes and also the quads for extending the leg. Over here, you can see the movement and bam. And we're performing this movement very rapidly. So we need a correct position on the blocks, correct angles that will allow us to maximize the velocity and also the positioning of the body during this phase. This is a graph that you can find on the World Athletics website, and it's a graph that was made and created during the final of the 60 meters at the Indoor World Championships in Birmingham, where Coleman won the World Championships, second was Subintian, and third was Baker. And they made this graph by using the average angles of the athletes during the set positions during the final. So over here we can see in alpha we have the torso angle. Then we have in gamma both hip flexions angles, we have on beta the knee flexion angles, and we also have on omega over here the shank angles. Now, we also can see over here another important thing, that the shoulders are going to be slightly in front of the starting line. So now let's start one per time. One thing that we need to look, let's start from the shoulders. One thing that we need to make sure that the shoulders, both on your marks and set positions, need to be slightly forward. Usually we use the socket of the armpit. We're going to show you later. We use the socket of the armpit to be aligned as a reference with the rear part of the starting line. This will allow the body to shift forward and to open what is this angle over here, so the hip flexions. So this angle, especially of the rear leg, of the hip flexion of the rear leg, need to be opened to approximately an 80-degree angle. An 80-degree angle will maximize what is the crossover, so the binding between actin and myosin filaments in the hip flexor muscles, meaning that then the athlete will have the possibility to exert the maximum amount of power to collect and drive what is, in the case of the athlete we've seen before, show you how the right leg being able to drive forward rapidly and powerfully. Now, the second, instead, the gamma, so the front leg hip flexors need to be at approximately 45 degrees to 45 to 50 degrees. This will allow, after the first push, so the double leg push is completed from the blocks, will allow a much powerful hip extension out from the blocks during the single leg push. Then over here, we're gonna have front knee angle. The front knee angle average for each athlete is gonna be around 90 degrees. So anywhere between 85 to 95 degrees is gonna be acceptable. This is the perfect angle that will allow the maximum amount of force produced during the leg extension during the single leg. And the second angle that we can see over here, which is the rear leg. The rear leg usually is very fixed. If you want to execute the blocks correctly, the rear leg has to be between 115 to 130 degrees angle. This will maximize the drive of the knee towards the front and will help the athlete to keep this angle open and minimize the activations of the hamstrings. During this phase, the hamstrings needs to be relaxed and not active, because if they're activated, they're gonna work as antagonists. Antagonist muscles will slow down the agonist movement, which in this case is the hip flexion of the drive leg over here. Another thing that we can see over here is the fact that the shin angles over here are not parallel, but rather the rear leg is dropped below a little bit. So the angle of the rear leg is lower than the front leg. This because will maximize horizontal velocity by allowing the knee to simply drive forward up to here. If they were parallel, then both knees will drive in the same direction, increasing what is in this case over here more vertical velocity. Okay, let's go back to another video, and in this video we have another athlete from China, not part of the national team but part of a province team. And this is an athlete that was able to run 10.3 in 100 meters this year. Very talented, and let's see at his blocks position over here, which we fixed and worked during the spring. Over here we can see how we have worked with his angles and open his rear leg angle to a 130 degrees, while the front leg I think is around 94 if I remember correctly over here. Need to fix it correctly over here. Yeah, around 95. So basically we are achieving these angles. So now let's see at his movement. So you can see now the athlete is in a correct position. You can see also the armpits are gonna be aligned with the rear part of the starting line. The hip flexors here are nice and wide open, especially with the right leg. So now in this case, we can move forward, and you can see that the athlete is able to push directly out of the blocks and to quickly drive this right leg forward and maximize the horizontal velocity rather than being vertical. Over here instead we have another athlete that came to us to execute a biomechanical evaluation, and you can see that during the evaluation we noticed that his rear leg is quite tight, around 110 degrees, while the hip flexors are extremely tight. At 61 degrees, the hip flexors do not have enough movement, do not have enough space, and not enough power capabilities to drive the leg forward powerfully and rapidly. And from this position as well, you can see how the athlete is not actually being able to be stable. From this position, another thing that we can notice that the athlete is not able to maximize foot to plate contact. What will happen that during the execution blocks, you can see that the athlete needs to first perform a negative, so an eccentric force towards the block before being able to exit and escape gravity. And as well, from this position, the athlete can maximize mainly only vertical velocity. Same athlete, we simply and quickly corrected his blocks position. The only thing that we did in this situation to make him understand how to correctly execute the set position was teaching him how to shift his shoulders forward to a point where his armpit was aligned with the rear part of the starting line, and we shifted his rear leg just I think 3 centimeters or 4 centimeters backwards to allow him to open the rear leg, knee, and the hip flexor knee. So you can see the difference. We have almost a 20-degree difference in the hip flexor. We have a 10-degree difference in the knee flexion. This is not a final start, but it's simply a quick fix to make the athlete understand how the position should look like and feel like. From this position, you can see, especially over here, that the athlete is now performing a full contact on the plate. So there's no negative and eccentric force from there. And from here, the athlete has maximum potential to exert a very rapid and swift drive forward with the right leg. Visually, it's possible to notice the difference, but if you also take the time, so from completing the double leg push towards the entering of the single leg push over here, so in this point, we can see that the total time in the first scenario, the athlete was able to perform this double leg push in 3/10.5 more or less. You can see over here, same setting, same timer, the athlete was able to perform in this double leg push in 3/10. So just by fixing this angle of the rear leg and of the hip flexion, the athlete was able to perform the same movement 5 minutes apart, almost half a tenth faster. And if you all are sprinters or coaches, you know that half a tenth to improve in just a single movement, in a single fixing like this, it's a massive, massive improvement. Now, apart from the angles and the positions during the set positions that we have talked so far, briefly, because there are many things we can tell, one thing, or actually more than one thing that we will need to look at on our athletes, on ourselves if we're athletes, are other important aspects of the set positioning. So the first one is that we need to have our center of mass, which in this case is going to be aligned with the greater trochanter. The greater trochanter is the prominence on the top of the thigh, which is going to be located more or less here. So this is where the movement of the leg swing starts. So we want to have this point to be in front of both the feet. So in this case, in front of the front foot. Why do we need this? We need this because in this position, the athlete is going to be able to exert force onto the blocks more horizontally and to maximize the horizontal velocity escape of the body. If in another scenario, let's say the scenario we had our center of mass being here, so on top of our center of our foot, then the athlete to escape the blocks will need to exert a much higher vertical force direction, and this force direction will as well increase the direction, the vertical direction of the movement, so the vertical velocity. As mentioned before, a second important aspect that we need to look is the positioning of the shoulders. Many athletes will want to keep the shoulders behind the line. Rather, we want to have our shoulders in front of the line with our armpit aligned with the rear part of the starting line to allow the hip flexors to open and to find that sweet spot to maximize power stroke. A third important thing that we need to look is that the athlete is in a position where he's able to achieve a perfect foot to plate contact, and as well, this is my personal preference, I'd like to have the athletes keeping the toes in contact over here with the track and not being completely elevated from the track. All right, folks, this is the end of the video. Thank you for joining us here today, and I hope the video has been quite useful for you to understand and maybe improve the settings for your athletes or even for yourself. I hope to have the chance to make more videos for the future, and if you'd like to subscribe to help me, that will help me to do more videos for the future. Thank you, and see you next time.